The mountain ridge sits in pre-dawn dark at 0510 hours, wind pushing grit across the laminated map sheets the Marine Staff Sergeant anchors with her gloved hand. She is the only intact coordination node left on this high ground, linking ground elements to aircraft that are already fighting fuel limits and weather they can no longer outclimb. The downed Air Force transport lies in the cut below her position, its fuselage buried under ice and scattered metal, its beacon fading into irregular pulses. Visibility falls under 100 yards, and the debris field shifts as cold air moves through the valley. Signal integrity drops and stays unstable. Higher headquarters is preparing to call the rescue a loss, convinced by remote returns that no one survived the impact. She follows reporting rules, logs each condition in real time, and keeps her radio handset pressed tight against the wind as she relays aircraft routing changes to Air Force crews pulling off station. Fuel windows compress faster than expected. Command channel wavers under intermittent noise. She watches the ridge markers tremble in the rotor wash of the last aircraft still holding, its low-frequency vibration running through the rock beneath her boots. She notes every deviation, every anomaly, every shift in the snow crust around the wreck. Perimeter stability trends downward. Beacon strength decreases by another increment. Downed air crew. Limited time left. She catches a faint tremor in the ground, a sharp discontinuity that does not match the wind or the aircraft's hover pattern, and she stops mid-sentence, listening for confirmation. Visibility contracts again. Something in the valley moves, and this is where the operation starts to break open. Cold wind moves across the uneven ground, carrying snow that sweeps over the staff sergeant's boot treads as she steadies the map tablet flickering under each gust. The IR strobe on the ridge marker blinks in steady intervals, marking her position for the Air Force crews still on the net. The radio pops with a short, encrypted burst as she logs another update. Signal integrity drops again. Before we break down how this rescue nearly collapses, subscribe for next mission. Wind-driven snow cuts visibility further. Now state where you are watching from so we can continue this brief. The improvised landing zone sits on a narrow mountain ridge at 0530 hours, cut into uneven shale and thin ice that breaks under pressure. Wind-driven snow pushes across the surface, dropping visibility under 100 yards as Marines secure the perimeter with chem lights, marking the only safe movement corridors. Wind harmonics roll along the metal equipment cases, and distant rotor wash echoes through the valley below. The environment is shifting faster than the operation can stabilize. Visibility drops another increment. The Marine Staff Sergeant stands at the coordination point, her armored gloves scraping lightly against the ridge rock as she steadies her map tablet. She serves as the air-ground liaison, tracking aircraft routing, managing ground-to-air traffic, and relaying data between the ridge and the forward Air Force strip. She reports up the chain, maintains coordination with Air Force crews, and logs every reading that will matter once accountability is required. Her voice stays level as she updates the situation, even as the tablet flickers under the cold gusts. Wind shear warnings hit the overlay. Below the ridge, a small rescue team moves across shale and ice toward the downed Air Force transport. They navigate by the chem lights she placed earlier, each light barely holding in the wind. The team advances slowly, mindful that unstable terrain can shift with the next blast of cold air. She watches their progress across elevation lines drawn on her tablet, tracking their distance with precise reporting in full sentences, never compressing data or skipping protocol. Channel interference rises on the secondary net. At the forward Air Force strip 3 miles downslope, maintainers operate a blackout refuel line lit only by headlamps. The aircraft waiting on that line are already nearing their fuel windows, and the timing is tightening. She listens to the engine noise from the valley, barely audible through the wind, recognizing that remaining aircraft will soon have to pull off station if conditions do not improve. She relays this upward, documenting each constraint as a matter of record, not emotion. Fuel margin decreases for the nearest airframe. Higher headquarters works from remote sensor returns that show no reliable signs of life inside the debris field. Those returns are incomplete, influenced by ice, terrain slant, and structural shielding of the fuselage. She knows every limitation of those sensors. She's logged them repeatedly in prior operations. Still, she presents the data respectfully and without dramatizing gaps in the feed. She keeps her voice steady as she marks the discrepancy between what the sensors suggest and what she sees. Scattered survival gear, subtle heat distortions, and radio anomalies across a secondary channel. Shifting debris reflects inconsistent thermal readings. Wind continues to build across the ridge as snow settles into the cracks between shale layers. The Marines, holding the perimeter, call periodic status updates, each reflecting rising difficulty in maintaining line-of-sight communication along the ridge. She logs each one, knowing that headquarters will review these entries to validate or challenge the decision to continue. Her focus remains procedural. Her responsibility is clarity, not persuasion. Command channel shows intermittent degradation. The rescue team's progress slows as slope angles steepen. Ice sheets flex under weight, and loose rock slides into the cut where the aircraft impacted. She notes the hazard, adds it to the operational log, and relays the updated conditions. Every report she sends must meet chain of command standards. Every detail must be admissible, repeatable, and free of emotion. Her discipline is the anchor that keeps the operation from sliding into confusion. Terrain stability decreases near the debris line. She glances again at the tablet's elevation overlays, watching pressure zones form along the ridge. These weather changes will compress the window for aircraft to remain overhead. And she knows that each lost minute erodes operational options. She updates headquarters, stating the time in a full sentence and identifying the trend with precision. The reply she receives is clipped. Headquarters maintains confidence in the no survivor assessment based on remote data. Sensor assessment conflicts with observed anomalies. Mountain rescue. Visibility falling. The wind intensifies across the ridge, pushing grit over gear and bending the chem lights until their casings strain. She keeps recording, the cold biting through her gloves as she braces the tablet against another gust. The rescue team radios faint movement near the broken fuselage. Non-definitive, but inconsistent with total casualty scenarios. She logs it carefully, aware of the weight of every word she enters. Rescue channel receives partial, low-strength anomalies. Higher headquarters signals that support may be withdrawn soon based on fuel timing and their current sensor interpretation. She acknowledges, but her attention stays fixed on the data in front of her. The ground truth she can see but cannot yet prove, in a way headquarters accepts. The pressure builds quietly across the ridge, threaded through each procedural exchange. One of her readings shifts again, out of pattern and out of place, and she realizes this is the first point where the operation may fracture if the trend continues. Under steady sleet and rising wind, the rescue effort enters a phase of tightening constraints at 0610 hours. The Marine Staff Sergeant holds her position on the ridge, maintaining coordination as weather forces the operation into narrower margins. Sleet strikes her gear and bounces off the laminated map sheets secured under her arm. Below her, the rescue team moves across loose shale, each step testing ground that is no longer reliable. The transport's torn fuselage shifts again in the valley, metal creaking under new stress patterns that she logs without speculation. Slope instability increases along the upper corridor. The Air Force Overwatch aircraft calls in its final advisory before pulling off station due to accumulating ice on its intake surfaces. The pilot maintains professional tone, noting that fuel reserves have reached their threshold for departure. She acknowledges, documents the call, and updates headquarters with the precise timing. One rotary wing aircraft remains available, its fuel timer showing diminishing minutes as it circles in crosswinds that buffet the airframe. She reports the window openly. Fuel endurance now at 28 minutes as of 0612 hours. Fuel time decreases under continued crosswind load. Radio distortion rises across the primary net. The staff sergeant shifts to a secondary channel to regain clarity, but the signal arrives with periodic dropout. The rescue team leader reports that shale is sliding underfoot near the 50-yard mark from the debris field. She marks the hazard, sends an advisory to headquarters, and keeps the channel open as the medic with the team stabilizes an airman's injured wrist, found near a fractured section of the fuselage. The medic's gloved hands work steadily despite sleet collecting on the cuffs. Signal integrity drops below operational baseline. Headquarters misinterprets a remote sensor hit that suggests hostile movement near the valley edge. She receives the advisory, listens carefully, and cross-references the terrain profile she can see directly. Snow is drifting in a pattern consistent with wind troughs, not personnel movement, and she documents the discrepancy in precise language. Despite her clarification, Headquarters issues a preliminary abort warning due to the perceived threat and the lack of confirmed survivors. She answers with correct bearing, acknowledging receipt while continuing to collect ground truth. Command channel becomes intermittently unstable. The rescue team advances by another 20 yards, but the slope steepens and ice lenses form beneath the top layer of shale. Movement slows as the team tests each foothold. She tracks their progress, noting the rotor wash from the remaining aircraft punching crosswind turbulence through the valley. The aircraft's engines strain audibly, a low surge cutting through the ambient wind. She informs headquarters that debris shifts have increased and that the team requires more time to negotiate the final descent. Debris field movement increases under new pressure. The staff sergeant scans her night vision overlay. A perimeter marker placed earlier shudders violently in the wind, indicating that gusts at the lower shelf have reached a level that complicates safe navigation. She logs the wind readings and forwards them upstream. The rescue team's progress pauses as they anchor a litter strap against exposed rock, sleet collecting across its fabric. This step buys stability, but it costs time, and time is the one resource the operation is losing at a measurable rate. Visibility dips under 70 yards. The Air Force crew at the forward strip reports that the refuel line is now compromised by sleet accumulation and must be halted temporarily for safety. She records the update and adjusts her coordination plan, recognizing that any future airframe will require extended prep before rejoining. Meanwhile, the rotary wing aircraft above the valley declares a further fuel reduction. 18 minutes remaining as of 06:18 hours. She transmits the update while ensuring the rescue team hears the countdown. Fuel window narrows to critical threshold. Snow mixes with sleet, forming a coarse layer that obscures micro-terrain features. The rescue team reports fresh instability, shale peeling away to reveal slick rock beneath. The team leader explains that each step requires deliberate testing to avoid collapse. She acknowledges, recording the new constraint while maintaining her position on the ridge. Radio handset braced against the wind. Rotor wash echoes again through the valley, less steady this time. Primary relay strength falls another increment. Headquarters issues a second advisory, warning that support may be withdrawn if no definitive indicators of life appear. She provides a structured response, documentation of heat fluctuations, notes from the medic's initial casualty assessment, and the sound of movement inside the wreck earlier in the mission. She keeps her tone procedural, avoiding argument while reinforcing the observable data. Her role is not to challenge authority, but to provide accurate ground truth that prevents misinterpretation. Slope pressure increases along the left descent line. The rescue team nears the debris field. Metal groans beneath snow weight, each sound carrying up the ridge. The medic radios that the airman's wrist fracture has worsened due to cold and instability, requiring immediate extraction once conditions allow. She notes the injury and transmits a medevac readiness report. The aircraft overhead responds with professional brevity. 16 minutes of fuel remaining in turbulent air. Fuel clock hits 16 minutes remaining. The misinterpreted sensor hit from headquarters triggers an internal shift in command posture. The staff sergeant senses the tightening tone in their transmissions. They are preparing for an abort, and she must ensure that her documentation is exact, admissible, and unambiguous. She continues to report debris movement, temperature deviations, and team progress with precision. Snow now falls at an angle that reduces visibility further. And she states it directly. Visibility falls under 60 yards. The rescue team reaches the upper lip of the debris field. They pause as more metal shifts inside the fractured fuselage. She hears it through the open channel. An irregular movement, inconsistent with weather alone, and logs the reading immediately. Still, headquarters requests further confirmation before reconsidering their abort decision. She maintains her tone, steady and calm, while the ground team prepares to enter the most unstable portion of the wreck. Metal stress signatures increase across the fuselage. The perimeter Marines report difficulty holding their assigned sectors due to wind shear and poor visibility. She acknowledges, ensuring they maintain safe spacing while continuing to monitor the rescue team's progress. The aircraft overhead reports fuel at 12 minutes remaining as of 0622 hours. Crosswinds, still degrading control. The combination of fuel loss, weather escalation, and sensor misinterpretation converges into a narrowing operational margin. Radio dropout occurs for 3 full seconds. The staff sergeant switches antennas, regains partial clarity, and directs the rescue team to proceed with caution toward the interior of the wreck. The medic radios that they have located signs of additional survivors, but cannot confirm status without entering deeper into the fuselage. She relays the information upstream, choosing each word with intention. Headquarters responds with a formal notice. Abort decision pending unless definitive proof appears immediately. Conditions deteriorating. She stands her ground on the ridge, holding the net steady while sleet accumulates on her equipment. The rescue team advances, forced to crawl across a slick incline to reach the cavity where movement was heard earlier. The aircraft above the valley declares 10 minutes of fuel remaining, engines fluctuating under crosswind load. She logs every detail, aware that the operation is one step away from collapse. Fuel threshold approaches minimum safe return. Wind intensifies, and the ridge shudders with each gust. Snow obscures the rescue team from her direct line of sight, leaving only radio updates to track their progress. She relays each update to headquarters, though the command channel breaks again under interference. Her professionalism does not slip. Her voice remains level despite the growing likelihood of mission termination. Command channel experiences intermittent loss. Below her, a heavy shift echoes from the fuselage, loud, distinct, and not fully explainable by wind or snow load. The rescue team halts. She marks the event and prepares to transmit the update, but the channel wavers again. She steps closer to the edge of the ridge, antenna raised, regaining enough clarity to deliver the report. Debris displacement increases beyond prior pattern. All variables tighten at once. Fuel at 8 minutes. Visibility degrading. Slope becoming hazardous. Headquarters leaning toward abort. She processes the entire picture, understanding that the next moment will determine whether the rescue continues or collapses. She prepares her next transmission. And this is the final stable second before the operation breaks open. Snow pushes laterally across the ridge at 0624 hours as headquarters transmits its final withdrawal warning. The message arrives with clipped precision. The remote feed shows no verified life inside the wreck. Fuel margins are collapsing, and all remaining assets are to prepare for disengagement. The Marine Staff Sergeant listens without interrupting. She acknowledges receipt, logs the timestamp into her record, and steadies her handheld device against the cold wind cutting across the ridge. Signal clarity wavers under gust loading. The last rotary wing aircraft holds a strained hover over the valley. Its engines lift and settle as the pilot compensates for crosswinds, funneling between ridgelines. Snow swirls around the fuselage, bending through the airframe in loops that make depth estimation difficult. She notes the distance. The aircraft is approximately 180 yards south of the debris field, maintaining altitude despite instability. She enters the observation into her log, each line written with deliberate precision. Rotor wash turbulence increases along the valley centerline. She angles her handheld device toward the fractured transport. A faint reflective pulse appears inside a torn cavity. It repeats, not as a random glint, but in a pattern matching the emergency signaling rhythm taught across aircrew training pipelines. She adjusts the gain, captures the reflection in a time-stamped sequence, and verifies that the source is inside the fuselage, not a surface bounce. She does not assign meaning beyond the observable fact. The signal repeats at a steady interval. Illumination inside the debris shifts one increment brighter. She transmits the clip through the relay using the most stable channel available. The signal pushes through with minor distortion but remains readable. She supplements it with the written data entry, stating the exact location of the reflection, the timing of each pulse, and the correlation to emergency rhythm protocols. She keeps her tone level, matching the procedural standards of cross-branch reporting. The evidence is not a plea. It is a documented condition. Command channel stabilizes for 8 seconds. The rotary wing aircraft reports marginal improvement in hover control and confirms the direction of the reflection. The crew chief notes a thermal irregularity on the transport's forward side, faint movement under debris. The staff sergeant logs the statement, time-stamps it, and forwards it to headquarters alongside the reflected light sequence. Snow continues to move across her gear, settling on straps vibrating under intermittent wind. Thermal return increases by fractional degree. Headquarters responds with initial skepticism, requesting confirmation from secondary sensors. She supplies it without hesitation. Ground team audio captured earlier, debris shift signatures she logged during the previous minute, and the steady reflective rhythm she just documented. Each data point is delivered without embellishment, arranged in a format that follows the established protocol for contradicting remote stream assumptions. Data relay noise drops below threshold. She directs the rotary wing aircraft to hold its current station within the authority permitted to her coordination role. The pilot confirms at once, stating fuel endurance at 7 minutes as of 0626 hours. She acknowledges and adds the fuel line to her transmission, establishing urgency without argument. Snow pushes upward along the ridge as wind shifts again, forcing her to brace the handheld device with both hands. Crosswind gusts reach disruptive levels along the ridge crest. Inside the debris, the reflective pulse changes amplitude. She captures the new sequence and adds it to the data package. The pattern remains rhythmic, consistent with deliberate signaling rather than random structural collapse. She notes that the amplitude shifts correspond with debris movement recorded earlier, offering a plausible explanation for fluctuations without over-interpreting. Procedural accuracy is her only objective. Secondary channel regains partial clarity. Headquarters pauses the abort directive. The shift is unmistakable. They request her assessment directly instead of relying on remote sensor interpretation. She delivers it in a single, structured report. No emotion, no advocacy, only verifiable details. She outlines the reflective sequence, the thermal irregularity, the debris movement correlation, and the ground team audio cues recorded the moment the fuselage shifted. Command requests full ground truth verification. Snow thickens around the transport, making visual confirmation nearly impossible for the aircraft overhead. Still, the crew captures intermittent thermal flickers. She logs each return. The handheld device chirps sharply. A clean data capture. The sound stands out against the wind and the distant engines. She records the event. Clean signal breakthrough at 0627 hours. Clean data chirp captured at relay point. She speaks the words with controlled precision. Ground, truth, overrides sensor error. The line stands alone, just as the data does. Clear, Observed. Repeatable. She transmits the verification package upward, sealing it with her time-stamped entry. Snow continues to sweep through the ridge, but her posture remains steady, centered entirely on the accuracy of the record. Reflective signal repeats with increased consistency. Headquarters responds with a formal acknowledgement. They state that the abort directive is suspended pending full reassessment. The responsibility for the updated picture is accepted at the command level. She documents their statement, noting the tone and timing exactly. Her authority does not expand, but the weight of her evidence reshapes the decision space. The rescue window reopens. Command confirmation received with updated liability. The rotary wing aircraft adjusts laterally, tightening its hold over the valley. The engines lift and settle again. But the pilot reports improved handling as the wind momentarily lightens. She logs the update and prepares her next coordination steps, ensuring every action aligns with protocol. Signal integrity rises to operational standard. Snow circulates across the ridge as she stands over her logbook, handwriting steady even as gusts push against her. The debris field below emits another faint reflection, now more stable and clearly sourced from within the fuselage. She records the change and submits the follow-on update to headquarters, completing the chain of command requirement, and the section closes with headquarters accepting responsibility for the corrected operational picture, the immediate threat contained, and the mission officially shifted back into active rescue based on her verified evidence. Penlight illumination settles over her weathered notebook at 0640 hours as she writes another clear, time-stamped entry. The page records what changed, who made which call, and why the rescue now moves under verified conditions. Her role remains constant. Verify, document, report. Nothing in her posture signals triumph, only responsibility. Comm stability increases across the primary channel. Cold wind moves along the narrow mountain saddle as the litter team advances with a wounded airman secured under 50 pounds of medical gear. Their steps are deliberate across uneven rock, each movement grounded in training rather than emotion. She tracks their progress at a distance of nearly 100 yards, ensuring the route remains clear while aircraft reposition overhead. Light radio hiss resolves into steady comms. An aircraft banks out through thinning sleet as survivors load under controlled timing. The crew chief reports weight distribution, door clearance, and fuel state in concise updates. She records each detail, reinforcing the accountability chain that governs every phase of the extraction. Higher command adjusts posture as her data continues to withstand scrutiny. Decisions now follow the ground truth she provided, not the assumptions that nearly shut the mission down. Duty over disengagement. Her logbook remains open, pen steady even as wind pushes against her gloves. She captures the final perimeter check, the evac corridor confirmation, and the assurance that no personnel remain unaccounted for in the debris field. Every line reflects the same principle. Disciplined integrity protects lives more effectively than force or defiance ever could. She closes the notebook as the operation stabilizes, fully aware that stewardship, not certainty, is what carries the mission forward. Medics move in controlled slow motion as they guide a stretcher toward the aircraft, each step measured against the cold air cutting across the ridgeline. Her boots stay planted near the edge, radio in hand, watching the tablet replay the confirmed signal that proved survivors were still inside the wreckage. The rising tonal sweep from the aircraft instruments carries across the valley, marking how little time remained when the decision point arrived. Evac timing narrows as aircraft rotate for lift. The choice was never abstract. One option followed procedure: withdraw based solely on incomplete sensor data and accept the risk that no one survived. The other required holding the line long enough to verify life under failing visibility and collapsing timelines, accepting responsibility for every second spent waiting for proof. Which call would you make answer with the action you would take under that pressure? And state it in the comments. Morning light settles over the mountain strip as the last aircraft rolls to a stop, its rotor blades slowing under a soft spin down that carries across the clearing. Marines and Air Force personnel guide survivors toward a temporary medical tent, each movement tracked and logged as part of the operation's record. The map board at the ridge is rolled up with evidence tags clipped in place, marking what was verified and when. Comms net clears for final traffic. Every mission leaves a trail of decisions, fuel tallies, movement orders, and verified data points. We walk each one so the truth stays visible long after the noise fades. This debrief is complete, but the work continues. And another operation already waits for review. Next mission loading. If you want the next incident brief the moment it posts, like this video and subscribe, because the next mission is already in queue and ready to move.